everybody, this is Esteban from Redline Auto Parts, here to show you a little background on a car that we purchased with the primary intention of rebuilding, and showing you the condition it was, what we saw what was damaged when we bought it from the salvage auction, and what was actually damaged on it when we got it in, and our decision-making process as far as whether to continue with the project or not. Hopefully this video gives you a little bit more insight into what to look for, and also for having a exit strategy in case the car isn't what you thought it was going to be when you got it. Alright, so here's the car we were considering rebuilding. Basically it's a 2010 Mx-5 Miata with the power retractable hardtop. This car has the Grand Touring package on it, which means it has the leather on it. This one also has the Bilsteins and the LSD. This particular car has 68,000 miles on it. So when we were looking at purchasing it, basically we could see what's damaged on the surface. So definitely there was an accident. Something hit it right around this area right here. Obviously we can see the Back to the Future style wheel right here. That's usually not too big a concern for us. These control arms are aluminum on these cars. The control arms either snap, the ball joints break off. So this is actually kind of common, and it's usually not a bad thing to fix. You can replace the subframe, you can replace the control arms, and usually there's not much beyond that. So from the pictures we saw, obviously, that there was some damage here. The fender was going to be questionable. In this case, the fender only has very light damage on it, but right here that can either be repaired when the car gets painted, or it can be replaced. Not too big of a deal there. Moving on a little bit further back, we see that the side skirt is missing on this side. That's not too big a deal. That is normally held in by some clips right there. We did notice that this other wheel was damaged right here. So basically has the big gouge on the tire, and definitely the wheel got damaged right there. Another thing we saw in the pictures was that the bumper was hanging down a little bit low right here. Usually, you know, from the impact, one of the clips will break or something will come loose, so not a big deal there. And this is where we start looking a little bit deeper into it, and when we start finding more stuff wrong with it, basically. So up until this point, we already know we definitely have to replace the front bumper cover, the grille assembly. We'll need to source a new fog light and shroud for that side. The headlight, it's a little cloudy right there. That would actually clean up. It has one broken tab, but that is reusable right there. Basically, one of the main things we were looking at on this car was that it actually has no unibody damage. All the structure right here that holds the fender, the bumper, the headlight, all that is actually intact. The main damage seems to be concentrated on just the outer body panels, and I don't know if you can see in there on the subframe. The subframe is damaged. That's usually not a deal breaker right there, because we replace the subframe, the steering rack, the control arms and all that stuff, get a full alignment on it, and everything works out nice. It's just a little bit more than we anticipated. You can see right there the condenser is damaged, the radiator. At this point we would still continue with the rebuilding of the car, but this is where we start finding things that just make it more expensive to do so. Now if we come back to the back right over here, we see something that wasn't visible in the pictures. The rear bumper cover is missing a chunk right there. So we go from just needing to reattach it over here and maybe a little paint touch up, to needing a whole new rear bumper. And it looks like the valance that was on here was also ripped off. That one was shoved in the passenger side of the car right there. Now the car overall looks clean, it looks well maintained, but then we also noticed that the tires on the passenger side are completely gouged and damaged. So that's when we start thinking, okay, maybe this car didn't just hit something in the front that damaged the front bumper and the wheel and tire. This car appears to have hit something like a curb very hard, and the damage isn't just concentrated to the one corner. Now we have to consider that there's damage to all four corners. That means shocks. These cars are multi-link rear, so one or two control arms are probably bent on each side. The subframe would need to be checked. This is where things get a little expensive, and at that point we've also noticed, let me see if we can get a good look at it right there, that wheel is completely broken. So that looks like this car hit a hit a curb or something. So now we're looking at suspension on all four sides. We're looking at all four wheels, all four tires. This is getting a little out of hand right here. And then as we look on the inside, this is something they commonly do. So all these parts right here, which are basically worthless, broken side skirt, the rear diffuser right there, parts of the bumper lip, all these parts are not usable, but they decided to include them with the car anyway, so they shoved them in here. And this is where you get some more damage. I think the seat will clean up actually, but they scratched the trim right over here. So these are things that you don't anticipate spending money on when you're rebuilding a car, but these are things that do pop up and kind of get you. Now back to the driver's side over here, we noticed that the bottom of the door right here was dinged in. We don't know if this happened from them opening the door after the accident or whatnot. And then back over here, this looks like something that could be easily fixed by a body shop. You don't need to replace the door per se, but it is more body work and more paint work. And then in the pictures, we did know that the airbag had gone off and that the seat airbag had gone off. In these cases, we would like to replace this whole seat right here, so you'd have to get a whole leather seat. The steering wheel airbag, which are 09 to 2015 specific. You would also need the crash sensors that made these airbags go off and the airbag module. We knew all that going in, but we look a little bit deeper now. Our nice car that looked really nice and well maintained in the pictures, some stuff starts popping up. So the steering wheel is not up to par right there. And the biggest kicker of them all was that there is a huge amount of cigarette smell coming from the inside of the car. As a non-smoker, that's something that we just can't deal with right there, because to get all that smell out of here, we'd have to basically replace the carpet, any other soft components on the inside, and that's just not something we're willing to do. And also this driver's side door panel. So apparently the impact from the airbag right there just broke the plastic right there, so definitely this door panel needs to be replaced. So as you can see, our rebuild purposes for this car are not going to pan out. Luckily, we usually buy the cars with a secondary intention, which is for using them for parts cars, because at that point this car is actually a very good parts car. It does have a couple of the high demand items we need, like the headlights, the tail lights for the specific year, some of the body panels. It has a 6-speed, it has a Torsen, or not a Torsen, the Tochigi Fuji LSD that came on these. The engine is in good running condition. So we have an exit strategy. I guess the point of this video is to kind of bring to light the things that might mess up your rebuild projects for you. Basically, cost overruns. So basically, if we were going to rebuild this car, it would come out to a lot more money than we intended it to, which at that point you kind of look at it as whether it's worth going forward or not, or whether it's worth just taking a loss of a couple $100, let's say, and running it back through the auction. So at that point, it's a personal choice. So this car being a 2010, we still consider it a new car, basically a very new car. We wouldn't expect too much wear and tear on it, but it does have some stuff that we just weren't anticipating, such as the smoke, the door panels, the scratches on the inside, you know, stuff like that. And especially with 68,000 miles, you know, we had our expectations kind of set medium right there as far as what we were going to get. Another car that we got here is another little surprise. This is a 2016 Miata Club. This one we bought it for a rebuild for another car that we bought. We basically need an entire front end from this car, and the driver's side door and the side skirt. So basically everything we need is in good condition on this car. This one, as far as accident damage goes, came in exactly as expected. This wheel, the suspension was damaged over here on this side, so we had to take the wheel off in order to get it free, in order to get it running and everything moving back there. We definitely did not have any plans on fixing this one. It took a very hard hit to the back right there and to the quarter panel where it meets the door jamb. We definitely want to stay away from any kind of repairs that involve this area right back here. It's a lot harder to get back lined up than the front. So we bought it as a parts car basically for our purposes, but then we started seeing some stuff underneath. So the surprises on this car are basically underneath. This car only has 30,000 miles on it. It's a 2016, but apparently coming from up north, coming from Ohio, this car was undercoated. The only issue is that I guess they just were not very careful when they're undercoated everything. I don't know if that's just the norm. We're here in Florida, so we don't really see that often. But the Bilstein Shocks, which should look like they're in new condition, are basically black. The differential back here, which normally looks like brand new condition with 30,000 miles, is heavily coated right there. We see it on the whole power plant frame. We even see it on the transmission. So if we were going to rebuild this car, this would be a concern for us, because let's say you want to keep the car, you want to keep it for a while, or you plan on reselling the car. Reselling it with the suspension components, the transmission and all this in this condition definitely lowers the value. It's on something so new like this, it's just out of place basically. So just one more example here. This is a car that we bought with dual intentions. Basically, if it's very nice, we can rebuild it. Otherwise, it would be a parts car for us. This is a 99 Miata 10th anniversary. As you can see, we deal a lot on Miatas here, but we also do sell parts for other cars. See the Porsche in the background over there, the Audi TT. We have a smart car over here and a Saturn Sky. So not just Miatas, but we do love our Miatas, of course. So back to the car. Basically, this one, as we can see, it took a relatively light hit to the front right over here. This would be something, of course, I would require from bumper support, headlights. The fenders would be questionable at that point, just from looking at pictures. The hood definitely, and core support, and more than likely a radiator. So we're looking at this car and like, all right, if it was very clean, it'd be worth going into. But here are the things that we don't see in the pictures and the listing when we go to buy them. So this car came from Insurance Auto Auctions, I believe. We buy them through Copart and Insurance Auto Auctions. Basically, they do their job as far as taking the pictures. The pictures you are able to zoom in, so sometimes you are able to see a couple clues here and there. In this case, the front bumper was mounted on here, so we could not see the rust on the bolts right there for the bumper support. Usually that's a telltale sign. Sometimes we'll see a little sign of rust right here. This car came from the Virginia area, which is normally not a big deal, but if we would have seen this and that right there, that would have been a little bit more indicative as to what's underneath. So basically underneath we do have some rusting, which is normal for that area, I guess. But you know, since we're in Florida, we are kind of spoiled on the rust-free cars down here, so that kind of takes us away from that desire to rebuild this particular car right here. The damage on the quarter panel right here, I actually had to zoom in very closely in the pictures to be able to see that it was a little bit wavy. So if somebody was looking at this car, didn't bother to go through the HD function of the pictures and look through each of them, they might have missed that, which would definitely add hundreds of dollars to the cost. Aside from that, I mean, the things back here look pretty normal. There's some scuffing back here that wasn't visible in the pictures. That would have been, and this gap right over here also, that would have been something that would just add to the cost of rebuilding this car. As far as pictures go, they like to take pictures from this angle right here, basically right about there where it covers the driver's side bolster. So it's sometimes a crapshoot as far as what you're gonna get as far as the driver's seat. And of course, the driver's seat is totally trashed right there. When you're buying used seats, obviously the driver's side one is the one that's more in demand. That is the one that is more expensive usually, so that seat would definitely need to get recovered or replaced. We also see that the factory shift knob is just not in very good condition right there. The steering wheel's not that bad, most of that cleans up, but these are just things that add to the expense. And it smells like water got in here, so definitely it's not just a fix the front end, fix a couple of the body things, replace this or that. At that point we're looking at a carpet replacement also, which requires the dash to come out in this particular car, of course buying the carpet and such. So there you go. It's just another example of a car that could have been and a lot of the reasons why sometimes we decide to make these cars parts cars instead of rebuilding them all. Just from a financial standpoint, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to continue on with that project. And as we were looking at that 2016 over there, so a little sneak peek right there of the RF that is going to be getting put back together by us here in the near future. So there you have it. Hopefully this little video was enough to give you some insight as to what goes into buying a car for rebuild purposes, whether what to look for, the little areas that'll get you in the end, and hopefully kind of nudge you in that direction to have a plan B as to if the car is not as good as you intended it, you have an exit strategy on it. You'll just resell it, sell it for slightly less than you bought it for, hopefully just a little bit of loss, maybe break even, maybe part it out. Or if you continue with the project, just know that it might be something that might not be worth it. So it's just one of those things, you might have to cut your losses every now and then just to make it worthwhile. But hopefully, if you are in the business or plan on getting in the business of buying cars for rebuilding, either for fun or for profit, hopefully this video was of some value to you. If you have any other specific questions on basically the car buying process, on buying them online, what to look for and all that, just let us know in the comment section over here. We buy cars every day, so we know what to look for, and just let us know if we can help you out with anything on that end. Thank you for watching.